Hello, I am back with a special guest, my mother, Janice Thompson. And if you're watching the video, you can probably tell that we're at two different places. I'm back at my house in Peru in the Sacred Valley, and my mom is recording from Florida from her friend's house. So, welcome on to the podcast. This is so exciting. She's one of my biggest fans. She's always commenting on all my stuff, and I'm just so grateful and lucky to have a mother like her who's just so supportive. I know I haven't chosen like the straight and narrow path, and you barely flinch when I choose to do certain things that are completely out of the norm. So, yeah, I'm just so grateful for you, Mom, for so many things. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to finally be here.
Yay! So,
Yay.
the first thing I want to talk to you about is just because I've talked a lot about this on the podcast, and probably a lot of people are curious to know what was your experience like with ayahuasca as a 60 plus year old woman. It's not so common that we see people your age going to plant medicines, especially ones as intense as ayahuasca. So, I'm just curious, what was your experience like? You can share anything that you'd like because just for the listeners, you came two different times, two separate week-long retreats, six ceremonies. So you've had definitely varying experiences. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what your experiences were like.
Sure. Actually, 7 ceremonies. I was tucked into that extra one just so I could spend the weekend with you.
Oh, yes.
So I came to ayahuasca as something I never even thought of. The first time I even heard about it was when you decided to go around the world for a year and experience all kinds of different things in a backpack, which I thought was just a marvelous idea. And but there was a certain place that the guy you were traveling with thought, I want to make this stop in this place and do this thing. And you kind of said to me, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but it looks like a beautiful place and I can hang out. And I said to you, I think at the time, well, maybe you want to read a little bit more about it because I'll bet you anything once you get there, they're going to talk you into it. And sure enough, not only did they, and you had a great experience, but, you came home and they said, you can't find new things without making space in your life. So you made space, you joined us for a while and just kind of let the universe tell you what to do. And this is relevant for my story. You'll find out later on. But then you saw that ad and it was from the same exact place that you had done your ayahuasca and for a yoga instructor and facilitator and
Yeah, but hold on. I've already told my story. Let's
yeah,
hear
yeah,
about yours.
sorry. So anyway, I went down there to find out what it was all about, thinking maybe I would sit on the side too. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I'll do a ceremony. Maybe I won't. Right. So did the beautiful place. Absolutely loved it. Did the first ceremony. Oh my goodness. I think I called it the land of despair. I mean, it became the first night was, just the touching point of, oh my God. I have got a lot to unpack that I was not even aware of, right? I didn't come there for any special thing. I didn't think I was in need of any special thing. And, when they talked about childhood memories, and I kind of knew I was very lacking in the 0 to 10 years, especially age, like I should have remembered more babies coming into my family and how I was with them and how my mother was. And I had none of those memories. So first night hit like a Mack truck, didn't take off like anybody else. They came around and, are you feeling it? Nah. Are you feeling it? Nah. Just thought, just not going to happen, right? Boom. Spent until the sun rose. And then the second night, very, very similar. Just, I think I was buried alive in a different life. I really do, because that's what it was like. I always identified with trees. I think I became the root of a tree at one point. Just completely down in there, just like, I don't know, that movie of Inside Out where she just kind of lays on the floor and can't move. That's how I felt, right? You're just in the darkness and in the dirt, and it was horrible. Anyway.
And just to interject, my mom has never done psychedelics before. It's not like she was some hippie in the 60s and 70s, experimenting with LSD and stuff. This was your first major experience with psychedelics, right? And you went straight for ayahuasca.
Yep, straight for ayahuasca. So after the second ceremony, I know they tagged you. They're like, you go tell your mother. The Shipipo people are good for soul retrieval. And I didn't even know that my young soul had pieced out because of a tragic or a bad experience with my mother. They asked me, do you want to know exactly the specifics of what happened? I'm like, no. I know that she was a mom doing the best she could, and it wasn't out of the realm of what I had imagined that she might have had postpartum or whatever. Who knows what the traumatic event was? But there was a traumatic event, and my younger soul decided, it's not really the situation I wanted, and took off. So those last two ceremonies, they were working. They were working all along with the plans to, try to reconnect that soul. It got a little bit easier night 3. And Brittany was the one that was tagged to explain this all to me. And of course, I had all these questions like, well, where has she been? Like, is she good? Like, maybe she's really bad. Like, maybe I don't want to be reattached. I mean, maybe it's a black energy. I mean, maybe it's dark and I shouldn't be doing that. She's like, Mom, only you would be asking all these questions. I don't know the answers to. But it was, so the last night was kind of this whole reuniting thing, and this whole, I felt different. Was that the rainbows and butterflies one? I think that was the second one. But anyway, I felt like this more whole person, this much more grounded person. I went home. I actually tried to go home. I had contracted COVID during the whole first time. And I was wondering about the lack of energy and the feeling like, you're just kind of laying there. And then, but the feeling of glass in your chest kind of was like a little nod to, I think this might be something more. And then getting to the airport and having the positive test, the United States won't let you back in, was definitely, but I did get home. And then, like they say, when ayahuasca doesn't have quite enough time for you, you kind of feel the urge again. So for me, it took a little while, but I definitely felt like I needed to go back to try and work on, the integration was hard. The process of getting home, meeting these people, these open-minded people, and having the people work on you and having you feel so wonderful, and plus the tranquility and the simple eating and the simple diet and just the spending time with yourself and just journaling all the time. I mean, then you hit back into work life and family life and everything else. And it was, all of us said in our group, that it's so difficult, the integration process. But anyway, look really forward to coming back again. And all this time, I'm also using the other tools that Brittany has taught me. Like I'm talking to an astrologer who I think is wonderful in the Vedic tradition, and doing podcasts of the Know Thyself podcast, which was very instrumental on my spiritual kind of journey. But I went back down, and I would say that those 4 ceremonies were all about accepting the baggage that the young Janice had, that I needed to clear. It was one thing to be reattached. It was a whole nother ball game to feel the despair. We even had a joke because they decided if I took pairs, I would start off in the process.
Sometimes we give people like a third of a pair before they drink ayahuasca. I'm one of those people because I think I have a slow metabolism. So if you eat a pear like 30 minutes before you drink ayahuasca, your saliva and the chewing gets your digestive system flowing. So just a little side note on the pear, while we were giving my mom the pear. And of course, it's like so funny because I think you did it, Dad did it. I'm like, yep, this is a family thing. Not many people need that weird thing. But yeah, anyway, that's what's behind the pear.
And it was just so much lighter because we were standing in the corner on one of the ceremonies. I think it was one of the first ceremonies. And there was a lot of people that were really processing and, giddy and funny. And it was the time when you've kind of done a little bit, but they've decided maybe you need a second hit of ayahuasca to kind of help you go a little, the second dose. And so I took the second dose and I came out and said something like, oh my gosh, they're like, well, that's despair. And we all thought that was so hysterically funny because we're all high. But I went into it again, and then it was right back into it. I said, if that's where I have to go, if I have to go to despair again, like I'm used to it now, I know that I can do that because the first time was extremely difficult. And it was, you're not supposed to be on anyone else's mat or talking to anybody else or holding their hands or anything, or even really leaving the maloka to make sure that they've, got the shamans have you. I was breaking those rules, and Brittany would always usher me nicely back in, and sometimes I felt like I didn't want to let go of her hand, but it was tough, but it was cool to release a lot of things that I didn't even know that I was holding inside. You know, the feeling like you were born into a family that didn't want you the way you were. You know, like I'm a fire, I'm a Pluto, I mean, Jupiter, moon, whatever. I've got a lot of energy, right? And they just wanted a compliant, follow the rules, quiet. It's not what they got it. But that they wanted to mold me into that. And so there was just a lot of release of not being understood. So it was awesome. I had decided to do the 4 days because I got to stay over for the weekend and just kind of, you don't do any medicine on the weekend. So it was really, really nice. And then each time I would say, I'm not doing this ceremony. By the time it got time for the ceremony, it was like, yeah, I'm doing the ceremony. Yeah. She's got one more thing to tell me. So on the last night, when I had felt I had released all that I could possibly release, so there was a lot of releasing, and I'm not a purger by mouth or by going to the bathroom. Yes. I'm a purger of cry. Yeah, thank you. Of crying. And I got so good at crying that I could have an ugly cry without my face moving. It would just be water that would like fill buckets. My office was crazy. Anyway, I purged a lot, and it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was a full moon, and we went out on the patio, and I remember Brittany saying, just, are you sure you got it all out? You know, do you have anything more? And of course I had maybe just a couple more little boop, boop, you know, gonna release this too. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there, and I've always said at home, if I want to take a walk or whatever with my husband or whatever, if I'm in a mood that I just want to be really happy, I always say, it's got to be butterflies and rainbows. Like if it's going to be butterflies and rainbows, I'll go with you, right? If not, I'm just going to stay home. So I'm sitting on the porch, and I feel something on my leg, and then I feel something on my arm, and then I feel something on my chest. These are all butterflies lighting. There's a butterfly on my leg. There's a butterfly on my arm. There's one on my right here in the crown chakra, just sitting there. And I said to Brittany, do you see a butterfly on my head? Because at this point I've been through 4 days of, hallucinations, whatever. She's like, oh my God, there is a butterfly on your head. And I said, all that would have to happen now is for me to be able to see a rainbow. And Brittany goes, oh my God, Mom, look up. And we look up, and it's the full moon. And not only does it have one of those rings around, I forget what the name of that is now again, but there's an aura that goes around the moon that's just a beautiful
Maybe
prism.
halo, yeah.
There are 2. There's one, and then there's another one. And we just like sat there like that. And there were clouds that eventually came and covered it, but it was just for us, for that moment, with the butterflies, there were 2 rainbows, full circle. It was crazy.
That was epic. Yeah.
That was epic.
You were like, I just wanted butterflies and rainbows, and then you ended up getting it. Last minute, the universe eked it out for you, but that was really magical, like truly epic. That deserves the word epic moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so proud of you. You didn't have it easy. I don't think ayahuasca ever gave you like a really light and easy like ayahuasca ceremony, but we always say like those are the ceremonies you come for. It's the ones that we call a work night, or you actually do some work, you actually realize some things, you release some things that are really heavy that you're carrying around for a lifetime. So I'm just so proud of you. Okay.
Yep. And I forgot to add, one of the reasons why I came too is because of a book that you asked me to read, which was called Heal Back Pain?
Healing Back Pain, yeah.
Yeah. And I did realize that I had a lot of places, this is for the people that are considering coming. Although I hadn't done it before, I had a lot of things, like they wanted to operate on the back of my neck and fuse vertebrae together and come from the front, which didn't sound palatable to me at all. And then I had, a knee that had kind of, they wanted to operate on a meniscus. And I ended up, after doing ayahuasca the first time, I came back and hiked Machu Picchu. And I had totally rehabilitated my knee by itself, and I've never had to do anything with my neck. So I had a lot of trauma that I was carrying in my body. So that was the first, like trying to understand what was happening kind of thing. And since then, it's just been like, poof, shot off. All the different things, modalities and things I've been into.
Yeah. So first I want to just, honor that. And I think it's so cool. a lot of people are not actually open to the idea that their physical problems can be connected to emotions or like repressed emotions and stored emotions, emotions that you don't want to feel. And you were really open to that idea. And I just really felt strongly like, try this before you try surgery, because you had a woman, her neighbor who you knew did that surgery, and she recommended not to do it. So you were getting all these signs like, there's other ways that maybe we can try before we go to surgery. And again, I'm not saying surgery is always bad. We definitely need Western medicine for a lot of things. But for back pain specifically, that book, Healing Back Pain by John Sarno, is super good. Definitely recommend if anyone listening has back pain or actually any kind of pain. It's not just about back pain. It's about like skin disease, eczema, psoriasis. It's about, I think, autoimmune disorders, a whole bunch of stuff that's related to how your body actually creates physical problems when we repress our emotions and push them down and don't feel them. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but I think it's amazing that you definitely healed a lot of your pains through your acceptance of feeling what you needed to feel. And especially since you're a little girl, that stuff has been in your body for a really long time. So yeah, just really honoring you for that. So what was it like when you came back home after all of these ceremonies? What did you notice changed in your life, or changed about you, or changed about your outlook?
Well, I think understanding what you just said took a lot of letting go, and because it's hard when somebody tells you it's in your own. Somehow, when they tell you it's in your own head, you're thinking it's your problem or something that you just. So, looking into other things at the same time. One of the things I was told to do is, I needed a grounding practice. When you consider your emotions and you consider who you are, and everybody's different. There's no one size fits all, but the whole Ayurvedic thing kind of came up with the doshas and what kind of a constitution do you have, and in astrology, what kind of a sign are you, and what energies are you born under, and what energies are you working together. All these things started swirling in my mind, and at the same time my astrologer was telling me, you are more spiritual now than you will be for another 20 years. This is like your transit for that kind of thing. So I just embraced that, and it just embraced me. And I started a grounding practice the first time I came back from ayahuasca, and I have now missed a couple days, but basically every single day I start with grounding, and the practice just kind of keeps getting changed and maybe lengthened in some way, but it's just me connecting with the earth, me connecting with my breath, me deciding to start a day that's just the best I can start the day, right? Without any trailing things from the day before, just trying to release everything and starting in a brand new glorious day.
And
then
just let me interrupt you for a second in case people don't know what grounding means. It's like you're literally going outside, standing in the grass with your bare feet, right?
And in the winter, I live in Illinois, so I would have like a big bucket that I would place if it was supposed to snow. And every day I would lift the bucket and step into the space where there was still green grass surrounded by big snow, sometimes quite a bit of snow, and get in there. And obviously the grounding doesn't last as long when the weather is that cold. But try not to have any, like usually a gown or a robe or something that doesn't have a bunch of elastic on
A
it, so that your
gown.
energy, your energy can move in your body,
Like a
And then
nightgown, not like a
made of
formal
fleece. But just connecting, just having your nervous system ground into the Pachamama, into the earth, right? Into finding a source that I didn't even realize when I started it, but it's just the energy that you have. Sometimes you have to release it. Sometimes you have to ground it. You have to get rid of it. You've got too much. You've got nervous. I mean, when I was a kid, my knee used to go like crazy, and my dad used to reach over and put his hand on my knee to stop it, because it was just bouncing all the time. And I have a lot of that XX energy. So for me, I need that grounding. For a different person, they might be very grounded and need something else, but that's what I needed. And and then I started adding, some mantras and things like that in there that made it feel more spiritual. And it just made me feel more connected to myself and to the world that I live in. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And I just want to say too that, you and Dad were always, it's hard to have a word for it. I don't think we have a word for this in English because it's not like you guys were hippies, even though that's what I say sometimes to try to describe to people. Like when I used to go to lunch, everything was in reusable lunch boxes. You know, we never used paper or plastic bags, and you always packed me like hummus and carrots and really healthy foods. And I would go to school, and everybody else would have white bread and Oreos, and I felt like a weirdo. But then as I grew up, I really appreciated that and really appreciated this like base of healthiness and prioritizing health. And you and dad were always like very active and very healthy still to this day, which is very awesome. But it's just funny because even though that's like hippie behavior, I definitely wouldn't have called either of you spiritual until, you know, the last couple of years. I'm like, wow, mom's really spiritual. So when do you think that happened? Do you think you had like some sort of spiritual awakening and it was like an overnight thing? Or do you think it was a lot of little things in a row and then all of a sudden you kind of realized, oh, I think I'm a spiritual person? Or neither of those? Was it something different?
Kind of the second more than the first, I think. I think I've always been spiritual in one way or another, but I think it was regimented spirituality when I was younger. We had to go to church, we had to learn all that stuff. It was very familial, I guess. You know, it was just the way that it was carried on and the things that we did. But along the way, it was like, I remember reading the Desiderata, and when I was in high school and kind of wanting to be in that whole hippie movement, which was just a little bit older than I was, and listening to all the music, and it was all awesome, and it was just kind of a bigger kind of spirituality. But then not knowing what to do with that. When you want to get married and start a family and all that kind of stuff, kind of reverted back to that kind of structured religion. At the time, Lutheran seemed to fit the bill because we would always search. When we would try to find a church, we would search the pastor, not the church. It was if they fed us in a way that we felt like we were connecting, and we found some really good ones. And then I, wanted to be part of the church, do the choir on the vacation Bible school and all that kind of stuff because I loved working with the kids. I loved being with them when they were doing this stuff. But I think it was when Trevor, Brittany's twin brother, came to me when he was, 13 or so and said, this religion thing, this is yours. It's not mine. I'm not going anymore. Because we would have to like wake them up every Sunday morning. I mean, a lot of people do that, right? And
We
it was
hated
just,
it. You just tempted
yeah.
me with donuts. You're like, if you go to church, I'll get you donuts. And I'm like, I'm food motivated. I'm like, yes, Boston cream or double chocolate. Like, as long as it's those, I'm good.
Yeah, and Craig always said, it's not necessary that we believe what they're saying, but there are nice people. People with morality go to church. People we want our kids hanging around with. They're other nice people. They open doors for people. They're kind to people.
Yeah.
It was like the kind of people we wanted to be hanging around with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then later it was more like, it's all a construct. You realize that each religion, you start meeting different people and they're Buddhists or they're, Catholics or they're Jewish. I had a lot of really good Jewish friends. And it's like, you start to just say to yourself, I don't know, inside somewhere that says, we're all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. We're all part of the universe. It's just man that has created these, our fishermen aren't doing very good, so we're going to have a rule that says you have to eat fish on Fridays. Or I don't want to pick on just that one religion, but it's just man has really, always messed up, materialized, whatever, quantified things that can't be. And you just start to realize that spirituality is so much more than a religion. It's, you are one with everything, and everything's one with you. And you just, love is, too bad I wasn't a hippie because I love their music. All you need is love.
You are now. So it's all good. Never too late to start. But I kind of want to ask you a question about a more personal question. Just when did you decide and how did you decide to have kids? Because I know growing up, you were kind of always telling me like something that's always in my head is that you never wanted to have kids because you were scared to bring your kids into this world. And then you told me that when you told your mom that, she thought the same thing. She's like, oh yeah, I felt the same way. So I just thought that was a funny thing where it's like we're all worried about the world ending during our generation or our kids' generation. So how did you actually decide to have kids?
That's a great question. So I think it's something inside you. And I think it's a yearning. And I think it's mind over that yearning. So you know in your mind, or at least I feel like all the signs all the time are, this is happening and we're warming up and we're having, we're going to have to move to places where there's more water and all that. And you hear that and you think, oh, I hope my kids don't have kids because I'm so afraid for them, right? But then that's how I felt, same kind of thing. They were always giving you the world is just becoming an awful place and there's so much crime and there's people don't understand each other. But then somewhere inside you, all you want to do, like people are like, what did you want to do with your life? I wanted to be a mom. I just did. But the time before, like when you're talking about when I said I was afraid to have kids, I was afraid to have kids. I was afraid to have kids because of my father's rough, heavy discipline. Let's put it that way. And also that little girl that we found out pieced out and came back later in my later life that said, you're not allowing me to be who I want to be. I have to be somebody else to be loved and to be, what I'm supposed to be. And I think that's scary, to be a parent that's going to have a child that's not theirs, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like, I believe now that you come out of this portal saying, I want to be there. That's the lessons I want to learn. So I'm going to pick that person as my parents on this trip to Earth. That's what I believe now. But maybe I didn't, wasn't fully baked back then, that whole thought process. But I didn't want to be what my father was to me. And I knew I had a temper and I knew I was this fiery person. So I decided to teach Sunday school, which was where we were at, without kids for 2 years, to see if I could manage to be kind and loving and gentle to children, and not lose my cool and not replicate the kind of childhood I had. And I found I loved it. I found I loved to be with them. I found, I just started to have this real desire that I want kids. I want to be able to be that person in their life. I'm going to be better. I'm going to see them as their own person, and I'm going to let them be who they should be, who they came to be, instead of who you want them to be. Mm-hmm. So that's when I made that choice. And a little bit maybe was to save a marriage that started on kind of a rocky note. Craig and I were told when we first decided to do that quiz or whatever before you get married, they kind of said, she's really going to be a problem with her sensitivity, and you're not going to want to deal with that. So it's probably not a good. We did it anyway, and there's a little bit of inkling. I got to be honest that it was like, well, maybe when we have kids, then we're going to be such great parents, and they'll bring us together. And that's not a reason to have kids. But life is what it is. You don't second guess it. It was my journey, and it was your journey, and you had to journey through a lot of darkness with your dad and I, and our times when we didn't get along well. There were good times. There were bad times. The bad times were not good.
Definition of bad.
But it's what you came down for. I just keep saying to myself, not only am I extremely sorry, but on the other hand, it made you into who you are today, which is a person I'm extremely proud of and thankful that, I've been told you are the older soul, and I believe it. And I believe you have brought me on the journey that I am on. It's kind of interesting because you're so much younger, but somehow you're so much way ahead of me. So I thank you for that.
I don't think I'm way ahead of you, but thank you. Yeah, I definitely think we all chose to be in the situation that we're in. So I don't, we've talked about this a lot, and I appreciate your words. And yeah, I don't think you have anything to be sorry for anymore. And yes, there were really tough times in my childhood, tough for all of us, tough for you, tough for me, tough for everybody. But I learned a lot. And like you said, I wouldn't be the person who I am today without those times. And honestly, hearing you, watching you go through this work and watching you drink ayahuasca and process all of these things is really wild for me, because I've had a lot of times when I've had to process stuff from you and from dad in my own appointments and ceremonies, and sometimes having little pity parties of oh, I had it tough. But then when I see you going through your childhood stuff, I'm like, Wow, how are you such a loving, caring, kind person, having gone through so much crap? Like, it blows my mind how amazing of a mom you are and how loving and warm you are with everything that you went through. So I think every generation kind of gets better and we learn. I mean, if we're paying attention and if we're doing our best, then we learn from our parents' mistakes and do differently. So I definitely just want to recognize you for doing that. Like, yes, you weren't perfect, nobody is, but you did your best and you were honestly so much better than your parents. And it's kind of like all we can do at the end of the day, just do our best and try our best to learn. And I'm really happy
Yeah.
you decided to have kids because I'm here and I definitely believe I chose you, as I talked about in different podcasts. I had this ayahuasca ceremony where I realized we all choose our moms and probably our parents, and super emotional for me because you were actually there in that ceremony, and I was just like, "Whew, that's wild." And it's really beautiful, and I just knew it to be true right when it happened. But anyway, um, yeah, back to the kids thing. I just think it's so interesting. It almost makes me feel better about wanting to have kids, hearing that you felt that way and your mom felt that way. And it probably just went back a lot of generations. It's always been the narrative is like, wow, we live in such terrible times. Everyone should be afraid. And there's just so much fear all the time. Fear, fear, fear. Everything's falling apart. There's a part of me that's like, well, maybe our world is actually falling apart right now because, like, it does sometimes feel like that. But if many generations back have felt that way, then like maybe it's not actually so bad and maybe it's not actually so true and devastating. We still have to do our best every day and try to be our best humans and contribute to Mother Earth, but maybe it's not so horrible and devastating as we're being told it is. So that made me feel better. And I also want
Plus,
to, oh, go ahead.
plus, I think that if you are accepting the fact that we are here, the universe wants us to be. There's a reason that we're here. There's a reason that we're doing this, and you realize it's not something our tiny brains can comprehend. Then we shouldn't be second guessing it. If we're going to say we're going to be in the present moment and we're going to do what we think is right, then we should do that. We are equipped to have children, and they're beautiful and they're wonderful and they're awesome. And stop worrying because, we have to lean in and do the things we know are right because we can't save it one at a time. We got to do it all together.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And switching to, I mean, you started talking about it, but this is another tough topic that we kind of talked about, we wanted to discuss here. So, you and my dad, since the beginning, probably weren't super compatible, had a lot of love there, but just constantly bickering. And so, you very recently decided to separate. And what led you to that decision after, what is it, 40 years of being married? And how are you feeling about all of that?
So bittersweet, but it's time. Then it's nice that we both agree that it's time. Um, Trying to be very adult with, you see some of your friends get divorced, you see crashes and burns, you see people that never want to talk to each other again, and then you have children that are involved in the mix, and our children have been involved in the mix since day one. So, trying to, first, I guess it's the understanding that it's not going to be fixed. I mean, your poor dad. I think I pulled him through 2 years of marriage counseling, marriage matters, marriage retreats, all kinds of stuff. It's not like 10 great dates. It's not like we didn't work on this. It's not like we haven't gone to things with some of our friends who all ended up divorced. But we kept thinking, we have so much love and we have so many similar interests, and like you should see us gardening side by side. We're awesome. We are an awesome team. There's a lot of things that we do super well. But yeah, no, not that. COVID was probably the thing that broke us the worst, is because it was, everybody's in the house. Nobody can go nowhere. There's no breaks. There's no traveling alone. There's no, you go to your place, I go to my place. It's straight in everybody's face every single day. And it's tough, and for two people that are, I would take every comment like it was against me. He would say, I'm just kidding. The whole thing would just, we just realized this wasn't, maybe we are 60, but we're not dead. And then when I learned in Ayurvedic, which studying that digestive process, awesome, totally cool. They say you're going to live 100. They figure on all the things that they've figured on the teachings and trainings that they give you that are from so long ago, is that every person has the ability to live, if they're doing it right, 120 years. It's pretty crazy when you think in our society, we're thinking, whoa, 102, that's so old, 105, that's so old. They just assumed the way that our body's built, if we're doing it right, if we're eating what we should and sleeping when we're supposed to and, clearing out all this stuff, it's 120. That's exactly as much more time as I have already had on this earth. So do I want to be happy? Yes. Does he deserve to be happy? Absolutely. I'm hoping he finds, someone that's awesome for him. And I'm hoping that I at least can just, and I think he's looking forward, really forward. He's never lived alone his entire life. And he says that. And I don't mind doing that for a while either. I think it's a really growing experience when you're not working to be able to be alone and just kind of figure out who you are. And then go on to another great life. So I think we've got a lot of life left in us. I think a lot of people hit this age and they're just like, oh, I'm 65. I'm retired. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and I think my friend Jess and I were just talking about this. A lot of people in your generation seem to have a really tough time with retirement, which from our perspective seems kind of ironic, or very ironic, because you were the generation that's taught of this like American dream, and probably your parents as well. But it's just like, you go to school, you do well, you go to college, all of this stuff, and eventually you can retire and have enough money and just like be on a golf course and be happy, right? That's the American dream. And ever since I was a kid, I was like, that seems effing crazy. I don't understand why we're like saving our lives for when we're old. And I remember going on a safari in Africa with Pete, and it was like we saw these older people there that had to be in their 70s, definitely retired, and they just looked so uncomfortable in these like safari jeeps that are super bumpy. And like I just was thinking in that moment in my early 20s, this is not gonna be me. I'm not gonna save this adventuring till when I'm super old. So something interesting that I've seen with your generation though is even when you get to the retiring age and oh, this is when you can spend your money and then just enjoy. A lot of the people your age are terrified to quit. Like dad's still working, he's probably gonna work for a long time. And I think that's totally fine because he actually seems to like it. He seems to have a pretty good job, and he kind of actually likes having something to do and having purpose. But I just see so many people your age who they were supposed to retire at a certain time and they're just kind of scared, or they don't know what else to do. They get all the way to this point in their life and they're like, wait a second, I have no idea what I want to do. I have no idea like where to go, what to do. I guess I'll just keep doing the exact same thing. So I think for you, it's really cool that you're not doing that. Like you actually retired and are kind of going against maybe what your instincts or your fear nervous system might be telling you, which is like, maybe you should find another job. Maybe you should. It's like you're actually going into all these things that interest you that you didn't have time to do when you had a job. So you're learning about Ayurveda, you're learning about astrology, you learned about sound healing. I mean, I could go on and on. You're traveling. So I just think it's really cool that you're actually like not thinking, oh, I'm retired now, I might as well be dead. You're like, I have a whole other piece of my life left. I have a massive chunk, new chapters of my life that I'm excited for. So on that note, what are some things you're excited for in this next phase of your life now that you're going to be retired and you're not going to be in this marriage that you've been in your entire adult life? Like what are some things that you're looking forward to doing or experiencing for this next chapter?
Yeah. So, and to frame my perspective on that, my dad at age 45, 43, whatever, always wanted to have a marina. He was going to have a different kind of retirement. He was going to own a marina, loved boats, spend all day on the water, and we were all going to have this wonderful life, or he was. Then he died at 45 from cancer. It took him a couple years to succumb to it, but it was just a horrible thing to know that he had some vision about what he was going to do. Mom and him actually even had a plot of land in Michigan that they had to sell eventually. But, most people, like you said, I don't even think it's, I do think that's, you get to the retirement age and everybody does get scared, but I think half of the scaredness seems to me, most of the people that I know that retire, even the people that worked alongside me, they have to face all the stuff they've been shoving down that's made them so they're almost all sick, almost all have arthritis, almost all have something. And it's just like, if I just keep working, I can just pretend all that and I'll have all the money in case I need it, in case I get really, really sick. Because that was always the thing, is like, how can you retire if you're not going to have money? Because if you get really, really sick, you're going to need all your money to, So it's leaning outside of that and just realizing, like, when I had to tell the people at work, and they say, well, what are you going to do when you retire? And I said, well, my husband and I are going to part ways. We're going to sell our house, our family house, and I'm going to get in a car. I'm going to take my dog, or my daughter's dog, and drive.
Other daughter, not me.
Other daughter. And find a conscious community somewhere. People that understand me, people that think like me, people that won't be in the rut of the general retirement age kind of thing. And I've been blessed with daughters and sons that let me hang around with the younger generation, because I don't want to just be with a bunch of old people. And I've been very fortunate at work to have a real interesting community of women that are all about 10-year stepping stones. There's 8 of us. And it was just marvelous to be able to have all the different thoughts and connections that we had with that group. But I want to continue that, so I want to find a place where all people can be together, very diverse, not only in age but also race and everything else. It would just be lovely. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to find a place like that.
Yeah.
Something that you can get into and it feels like energy. So I've been to a couple of those kind of places in my life. So I'm going to start by going there. I'm going to go to New Mexico. I'm going to go to Colorado. I'm going to go to California. I'm going to just try to go to each place for maybe a month or 2 and kind of check it out. And I know, I keep saying, I'm just going to jump and I'm going to trust the universe to catch me.
Awesome.
And I think it will. And so
yeah, much easier said than done. But I'm so proud of you. Every time I've done that, I've just been so rewarded, and it doesn't really get like less scary, but it definitely gets easier to remember that you're going to be okay. Like every time I have to do that, I still have this resistance and this like contraction feeling of, oh my gosh, oh, do I really have to do that? But there's this other part of me that's getting stronger that just knows you're going to be totally fine. We've done this before. Like you've nothing to worry about. You are held, you are supported if you just trust fall. The universe.
See, and I watch you. And I've watched you all these times. I'm like, see, it works. I can do that too.
I'm the canary in the coal mine. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm like, it's still cool, guys. The universe still supports us. Yeah.
And it's amazing. I've watched it support you. It's amazing. The group of people that you are with. I was just really lucky to be in Peru with Brittany and with a lot of the people that work in the medicine healing business, right? And the people that are learning from shamans on how to pay attention to plants and how they help you and how you need to live. It's amazing. This group of people is just, they're so supportive of one another and they're so willing to try new things, What plant are you eating for the next 2 weeks? I mean, it's crazy. I love it.
I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful. And also just, I always tell people it didn't happen overnight. I had a lot of years, I don't know how many years, but a few years where I felt really alone. And I told my one friend, Thomas, that like, they say you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most or whatever. And I remember hearing that and I was like, that's a problem because it's not that I don't like these people. I love these people, but this isn't who I want to be. This isn't who I want to become. And so I started just like listening to a bunch of podcasts and reading a bunch of books and started kind of feeling like those were my friends. Those are my people, even though they don't know me. So I did that for a while. And I feel like I just was pretty clear on the type of people I wanted in my life and pretty clear on the type of friendships and relationships I want, which are built on trust and support and making each other's lives better. Because what I realized is, a lot of my friends, especially when I was young, is just so much complaining and gossiping and, trying to take other people down to lift ourselves up because we have low self-esteem and all that stuff. And now it's just like, no, friendship can actually be, you are like puzzle pieces and you're really helping each other and you're fitting in these gaps that you kind of, like if I can't do something, then I know my friend has this certain skill, or if I'm feeling really down in the dumps and like I need a lift, like emotionally, then I have friends who can do that. And it's just really, it honestly never ceases to amaze me. I've had these friends for only a couple years now here in Peru, and they're just amazing. And I still love all my childhood friends that I still have. Of course, they're freaking awesome. Wish I talked to them more, but I'm so grateful for these people in Peru. And I say all of that to say it is totally possible. You're going to find your people. You just have to trust, and you just have to keep doing the things that you're interested in and the things that light you up, because it'll just be automatically attracted to the same kinds of people. And yeah, it seems so difficult sometimes, but I don't think it actually is. It's just like keep choosing yourself, keep showing up for yourself and doing these things that you love, and you'll just be like a magnet for other people like that who work for you. And you already know this, but yeah, I definitely think this is going to happen for you, and I'm really excited for you to start this journey.
Yeah, like you're right. You know it, and yet fear is real. So you just have to, yeah, make space. And yeah, completely agree. I'm so happy that I can watch you do it and see how it turns out, and think, yeah, like attracts like. It's just, and so very, very special. Yeah, your roommate. I've got to meet your roommate for the first time, and he's just such a lovely individual.
Love Kevin.
And yeah, and so it's just it'll work out. But yeah, not easy, and not in the least. Yeah,
No, and fear is
fulfilling.
real,
Fulfilling.
Like I had an ayahuasca ceremony. It was pretty funny because a lot of people, in these spiritual communities or what's called spiritual bypassing can be like, oh, fear is an illusion, fear is not real. And I had this one ceremony where fear was the realest thing in the world. And just realizing, it's okay to feel afraid. I think I saw this on a kombucha bottle or something, but it said like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I
Yep,
was like,
exactly.
That's better.
That's like the poster child for this time. Yep, exactly. That's awesome. I love that.
Because it's not like I don't feel fear. I feel fear all the time, but I don't let it take over me or kind of linger too long. If I feel it coming in, I'm just like, oh, yep, there's the
Yep.
fear. I'm
There's
not going
something
to act
better
on
on
it.
the other side. Yep, yep, something better on the other side. You just know it. You just got
Yeah.
to get through it. Got to
And I
breathe
find
into it.
totally, and I find when I have the most resistance to something is actually when like that's the thing I need to do the most. And it happens so much. It's like somehow with intuition, it seems to be the hardest decision most of the time is like the right decision. And so when I'm feeling this like intense resistance, even let's just say about a plant medicine ceremony, if one day I'm just thinking all day, oh my God, I really don't want to drink tonight. I'm feeling so anxious. I definitely will drink that night because it's like there's something about my psyche or my body or even my ego that's really resisting some sort of change. But there's another bigger part of me, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, that's like, no, we got to do this. We know this is going to be really good for us. It's just, it might be scary. It might be out of your comfort zone, and that's totally okay.
Yep. Yep, and she loves to play. For the few ceremonies I've had compared to yours, she really plays with that intuition for me. I don't know, but every time, something's related to, you got to get that right. You got to get that right. You got to
Yeah.
follow.
Everyone has their own different tools for kind of distinguishing anxiety and intuition. But for me, I've heard a couple different helpful things. One is intuition feels expansive and fear feels contractive. So if you're thinking about a decision, and by the way, intuition also feels like we were saying uncomfortable a lot of the time. So it's kind of when you think of something, your initial gut reaction is, oh, I should do this. And then your second reaction is fear or like resistance. That's also intuition. But if you feel a certain thing and then you hear a bunch of thoughts, like the thoughts are not your intuition, they're your ego. It's like anytime you're hearing words, that's usually your ego. I don't really hear intuition in words. It's more of a feeling. But anyway, if I feel something like, let's say, oh, I feel like I have to move to Peru. That's my first feeling kind of without words maybe. And then I'll feel this fear, but it feels like an expansive feeling. That's intuition. But if I'm saying, oh, I feel like I should, go out with this friend tonight, but then all of a sudden I feel really contracted. That's fear. That's not an intuitive thing. So it's a really hard thing for me to talk about
It
because
is.
it's all like feeling and floaty. But
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that I think you have to discern and practice. But now I know I'm pretty clear on when something's my intuition because if I don't follow it, I get whacked. Like I get smacked by something, and it's like enough of those times you just learn classical conditioning. You're like, okay, if I
Yeah.
don't listen to this feeling, I'm gonna regret it. If I don't listen to
Yep.
this, like I'm gonna have to listen to this at some point, so I might as well listen now. That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
back to the kids, real quick, because I was looking at my list of things I wanted to talk to you about. But um, what did you learn, or a couple things that you learned from being a mother or from being a parent?
That's a good one. Um, Probably that the well of love never runs dry,
Hmm.
ever. Um, that that they're not, that you didn't create them, that they're not going to be just like you. Um,
I mean, you did kind of create them, but what you mean is they're not going to be like, mini me's or clones of you, and they're not just going to.
they came, yeah, they came through you, not of you. You know what I mean? It's gifts. They're gifts. You didn't make them. They decided, to come to you, and they're going to help you learn something. But along the way, it's just going to be so magical. I mean, I'm so thankful for my children. Um, I think I learned how to be more childlike again, with kids. I'm a big proponent of getting down on the floor and playing with your kids and not ignoring them. And I hate the whole, I get it, but tablets are easy and phones and all the rest of that stuff. But I hate that we have it sometimes. I think they're awesome tools. I think just a lot of times we don't use tools correctly. But I just love to play. I just love to laugh. I just like to do stupid stuff. I mean, I was known as the mom in the neighborhood that if you're going to a costume party, call Janice because she has an inventory in her basement. And then when all the kids would come over and we would have these parties and everyone would dress and the guys would dress like girls and the girls would dress like guys and they would just play out and we'd have music going. It was just, what a shame the society doesn't have activities for ages between like 16 and 17, or I mean 13 and 17, where they can't drink, they can't go out, they can't, nobody could do anything. It was like, I think one of the kids' friends called me the Kool-Aid mom. People would, I was so cool. You don't have to be cool, you just have to be like, figure out things that are fun. Because what are you going to do? Lock them in rooms between 13 and 17 or 18 until they can drink? What kind of a society would we have then? So I just used to love to have fun. So I guess it was bringing back the fun. I didn't have fun, we found out later with ayahuasca. I didn't have a lot of fun when I was a young kid. And it was all, then shortly after my dad died, he got sick when I was 14 and died when I was 16, I became kind of the man of the house, and I helped my mom, but she was, she had a lot to go through with the death of her husband. So it was just the ability to be a kid again. I was very, very fortunate that your dad worked so that I could stay home. And I could be the library mom and the this mom and the that mom, and oh, you want a musical, you want a talent show at school, let's create one, let's have one where we can all get into costumes and have great acts. I mean, I just had a ball. Having children
Yeah.
was fun. It was a
There's some
great job.
things that I love that you did that I've never heard of anyone else doing. Like we celebrated every holiday and we did it big. Like obviously Christmas was a huge event, but then it was like Valentine's Day, which is normally kind of just honestly a shitty holiday. But you made it so fun because we had a scavenger hunt around the house, and you would leave these little clues with candies, and then that clue would lead to another spot in the house, and we would collect them all. And then at the end, we'd have this little gift. And you did the same thing for Easter. Like obviously, we collected eggs and everything, but we also had a scavenger hunt. And I just loved, that extra effort you always put into things. It's so memorable, and it made me living in Chicago as someone who hated the cold and was pretty depressed, like those little things really helped me kind of, I don't want to say get through the year, but just make the year more exciting. I always had something to look forward to. If it wasn't Valentine's Day, then it was Easter. And then it was like, obviously summer was great, but then it was my birthday, and then it was Thanksgiving, and then it was Christmas. And then like there was always something coming up that you made really fun. So yeah, that was just awesome. And where did you even get that idea to do like all these
I was
scavenger
just
hunts?
It's just it's just, you're just allowed to have fun. So it's like, we used to also have those dinners, which you guys leaned into, which was awesome. It was like, we're going to have an African dinner and you have to have tribal affair on, which, everybody had to go look it up. You had to come with 5 fun facts about,
Hold
Africa
on, yeah.
or whatever.
Let's back up. For these family dinners, it's like when we were kids, we each had to, I think we had to choose, right? We weren't assigned a place. We had to choose a place in the world. And then we'd have to research that place. So we'd have to know their national food. We'd have to know how they dressed, how they lived, and a fun fact about it. And then we would come prepare that dinner for the family and then make it a whole theme night. So yeah, definitely not like politically correct, a lot of the stuff we did. But I remember, I think the first time I had black refried beans was for one of these nights, and we had like a blanket over our kitchen table because we were trying to mimic a hut or something. And I was really young, but I remember eating these like black beans and thinking this looks like diarrhea, but it tastes really good.
I think we ate it with our hand, it was just like an excuse to be silly. And I guess I missed that so much in my childhood that it was like, I just wanted every opportunity. It's like, why do we only have to hunt eggs on, when everybody else is hunting eggs? Wouldn't it be more fun to hunt for candy, like in the house? Plus hunting, it was like, you had to solve some pretty good clues. It took me a while to do them, and then you had to think them through, and it was like whoever came up with it first. It wasn't this just like run mad race for the whatever, And then we used to do all those, even all your birthday parties were like, we had like the pirates once, and they were we'd talk like pirates, and we'd do like obstacle races and all kinds of crazy things. And yeah, it was so funny because we had such a rough time as, Craig and I being parents together, but at the same time, we also had this just love for humor and love for being happy, and it was like releases, I guess, little releases along the way, just something like you said to look forward to. And while you were looking forward to doing it, I was looking forward to getting ready for it, right? And all the different things that you had to have. I mean, my sister used to always say, we should do children's parties, we are so good at this. And I thought, yeah, only the adults care about a lot of the matchy stuff that we did. But we liked it.
It was so fun. And even stuff like at DeBevick's, there's this restaurant in Chicago, I don't know if it's anywhere else, where the waiters and waitresses are really rude to you, and then every once in a while they'll get up on the counter and do this dance in character. And I remember doing that with my brother and sister like a couple times. We would just act like we were at DeBevick's waiters and waitresses. And you and Dad just, really put up with a lot. Not just put up with it, but really encouraged it. And I was realizing, I think I did a meditation the other day where it was like, think of things that really joyful moments you had in your past. And it's a kind of weird one because, maybe I'm overthinking this, or maybe I'm just a very sensitive person, but I couldn't think of many moments that were just pure joy, because a lot of them, it's like the movie Inside Out, where she realizes a lot of those joyous moments came directly after something that was really sad, or vice versa. So it's paradoxical. I'm always feeling multiple emotions at the same time, but some moments where I really felt like pure joy was just dancing around with our family, especially to musicals that other families might think are totally weird. Like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat was like one of my favorites, or Les Mis. And we would I remember me and Trevor, even before Carly was born, we're just like dancing around, and we'd know every lyric to all of these. And yeah, we just turn on musicals while we clean the house, which just really made it more fun. Like that's such a joy to, even though we did have a lot of conflict and a lot of trouble, I think we were kind of able to keep coming back from that because of this joy and this love that was there. It was like this pendulum swing. It was never just all horrible and tense. Like we could also come back from it and really have so much fun and laughter and dancing.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was the belief that children are magical, and they are, and just letting yourself lean in. Even though it may be because you're going through so much other stuff. It was just such a release, and the music was just so awesome, and you could just get lost in it. And yeah, we have more family videos of everyone dancing, everyone up on, we took in those play sets that were meant to be outside play sets, the plastic ones, and we'd bring them into our house. We would have no furniture in the whole front living room, but we would have awesome play sets, you know, and just loved it and leaned into it, and fences, and yeah, I just don't know. I was very fortunate to have that. That was a cool time.
So, is there anything, if there's people listening who are, currently parents or planning on being parents, is there anything that you would recommend that maybe you would do differently next time, or maybe like a big piece of, I definitely would recommend this piece of advice for parents?
Absolutely. I've always said that if somebody asks me would I regret everything, the answer should be no, I don't regret anything, because it teaches me something. But the one thing I think that all children should have, and I see a lot of it on Instagram now, so I'm really, really happy, is teaching a child how to be alone with themselves, and teaching them how to breathe, and teaching them how to be present, and teaching them how to respect nature and get out into nature. I mean, we did that a lot. We did a lot of nature, but we never really did the sitting completely still with yourself. I'm not gonna make you do it. Maybe I should, maybe you would do that yourself and let them see you doing that. But I really feel from a very young age. I mean, I brought my grandchild a Buddha statue. He's a frog because Eddie liked frogs. Or turtle, I think it's turtle. Anyway, at just 2 years old, saying, let's just go sit with turtle. Let's just sit and breathe. And at first the kid was like, no. Like, you breathe, Nana. I'll watch you. You know what I mean? But then we got to the point where we're going to naps, and it'd be like, I'm going to breathe. And he'd be like, okay, you go ahead and breathe. Like, I'm not going to breathe, but you go ahead. And within not that long of a time, he was breathing with me and falling asleep faster than he was falling asleep for anybody else. It's like they know it. They know it in here, but it has to be, you have to show it, and you have to like allow space for it. I'm not saying make anybody do it, but allow space for it. And then I think that becomes a lifelong, I think there's a really good book. I forget who wrote it. And it's called Breathe In, Smell the Flowers, Blow Out the Candles. Right? And Carly, I don't think I did it with you guys, but with Carly, because she would get so upset. She would just her whole body would get upset, and would just wave the fingers and say, the candles, blow out the candles. And then she'd blow, and she'd get maybe 2, and there'd be 3 left, and she'd have to keep blowing, right? But you're teaching them a breathing technique. And I really think that we save, or we, our yoga, our meditation, they're ours. I don't think we think of offering them to children that are that small, but I do think that would be my one big thing, is teach your children to breathe and to meditate from a very young age.
I love that answer. It reminds me of Thich Nhat Hanh's book. I think it's in his book, Pieces Every Step. Have you read that one?
I love it.
I think he talks about having a breathing room is really important in the house. He's like, you don't need a living room. You don't need anything else. You just need like a separate room where everyone can go and breathe and not talk, because especially for kids, it's important to know that, they're not going to get yelled at. They don't have to explain anything. They can just sit here and breathe. And this is a space where that's like a known thing about what the space is for. And I just love that idea. And also I think, maybe just a suggestion, you could read that book to Eddie. It just seems very child friendly, because I think one of the things he says is similar. It's like breathing in, my body calms, breathing out, I smile. And there's so many times when I use that, especially when I was like having anxiety. I'm like, breathing in, my body calms, breathing out, I smile. Because it's hard to have anxiety if you're smiling. I think I've talked about this before, but your obviously your emotions, your physical actions can influence your emotions in the other way. It's not just the other way around. So you can kind of fake it until you make it. And one of the things I think he says in that book too is just wake up and smile. And that's something I try to do every single day. And I genuinely think it's made a huge difference, because your body can just kind of reacts to, oh, I'm smiling. I feel happy about something, or I'm grateful, So anyway, maybe you can read that, Eddie, just a little side note.
Good idea. Love that.
So is there anything else that you want to share today or talk about?
I think the one thing I would recommend for everybody is, and of course it's the latest thing I'm researching or whatever, is just nobody gave us a manual on children. They also didn't give us a manual on ourselves. And I'm finding, going through the Ayurvedic school that I'm in right now, so much of what our ancestors did and taught us, we've looked at, oh, we got to get better. We got to do things a different way. We got to do things more. What? No, go back. They had a lot of really great ideas. And our body is just so needing us to listen to it. And we just keep thinking that, there's pills and there's bottles and there's things we can do and supplements and things we can make ourselves. No, none of that. Our body's almost all water. And I've just learned the very simplest thing. I haven't gone very far in the education yet, but I wasn't even taking water in correctly. I wasn't warming. There's different types of people obviously are going to be slightly different, but everybody, all the cells in your body require whatever they're getting delivered, they need it delivered by water. And if we have dry mouths at all, we're not doing a good job of keeping our body hydrated. And to take in all the nutrients and everything else. So it's just the base of your life, And it's just, I would suggest that everybody give a little thought. If you're already doing yoga meditation, why not try a little bit of delving into Ayurveda and at least just have warm salt water every morning and every time before you eat a meal so that your stomach is ready to digest the food that you're about to send it. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion for big people.
I love it.
Well,
it reminds me of this TikTok I think I saw where, TikTok's it can be really, really boiled down spiritual concepts into like a minute, which sometimes can be awesome and sometimes can just be like way too watered down. Just like a horoscope, right? If you're like, okay, I'm just reading Sagittarius, like that's just a tiny, but anyway, this particular TikTok just stuck in my mind because I'm like, I actually follow it all and I feel way better. No cold water. It has to be room temperature or warmer. And I think I told you this a while ago, but you were very adamant about like, I love cold water. And I didn't listen at all. And I'm like, let's double down on the ice. It's like, I love ice water. Yeah, I don't drink any ice water now. Not at all. Wow,
not at all.
That's amazing. And honestly, a lot of people are like that. It's so many Americans. Like when I went to Europe, they never do that. They don't put ice in your water, or sometimes they do if they know you're American, but it's just such an American thing. I know a lot of people who are like, I can't have water unless it's ice cold. And so I no longer enjoy drinking water that's ice cold because I just hear this voice in my head that it's like trying to wash your dishes with cold water is like how your digestion is with cold water. Of course, it can work, but it's just so much easier with warm water. So that's one of the things. And another one of the things is don't drink water while you're moving or walking, which constantly pops into my head. It's just like eating when I would always get annoyed at Carly and Dad for like standing up and eating and like talking, moving around. I'm like, that's so bad for your digestive system. You just need to eat and sit. And the same thing goes with water, apparently. So yeah, I've learned a lot of like small little tidbits about Ayurveda, but I definitely think even if people just started listening to their bodies, that's what you said is the main thing. We're so out of touch. They don't even know what that means. They're like, a lot of people have asked me, how do I listen to my body? Like, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of the first things they teach you in Ayurveda is like, well, okay, sit for a second. Well, how do your red blood cells feel? And I'm like, what? Well, okay, let's start a little bigger then. How does your colon feel? Like, I can tell you how the inside of my mouth feels. It's like, you realize how definitely out of touch you are. And then they said, did you know that there's this, you have to have the enzymes in your mouth. Proper digestion begins with the eyes and the nose. So when you're just beginning to cut, peel, heat up the stove, start to grill stuff, that is part of digestion because that's releasing all enzymes and stuff. Well, there's this place behind your top lip that gives you this really awesome enzyme that really helps you digest, but it's not active when you're talking. So when they said children should be seen and not heard, I don't think that's necessarily what they were talking about, but everybody should be enjoying their food and not talking while they're eating and then take a break and have some conversation or whatever. But it's really interesting. And then all this digestion that has to occur before it ever gets to your stomach. No wonder we're having all kinds of problems because of the rotting food that's in our gut because we're not digesting it the way it was meant to be digested.
And we're so disconnected from our food. Like I'm sure before, for a long time we were literally handling our food in many ways before it got to our plate. But now we're so disconnected. I mean, even myself, it's like I feel a little bit more connected because I'm in Peru and I'm lucky that I get to go to the market every couple days and pick out some fresh fruit and all this stuff. But I still am not like on the tree harvesting the things or plucking the, like, I don't know. I just recently learned what a cashew flower looks like. I had no idea, and I've been eating cashews for so long. I don't know what almonds look like when they're growing. We're just so disconnected from our food, where it came
Mm-hmm.
from. And someone told me to, I think it was Kevin, like one of the most important things about Ayurveda that they teach is you should eat seasonally and you should eat locally. Because duh,
Absolutely.
because that just makes sense. Like I'm not going to be in Chicago in the middle of the winter and wanting to be eating raw salads. Like that just doesn't feel good. That doesn't even sound good. When I'm cold, I want soup, I want root vegetables, and that's what grows. That's what grows in the cold environment. So, yeah, I
That's
just
what was
love that.
so cool about visiting you is standing up on the hillside and looking down at the town in Peru and seeing people's houses intermixed with farm fields, intermixed with all this produce, and then just you're just going down there and eating what they're just pulling out of the ground. It's like, oh my gosh, we've so lost touch.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
lost touch.
learning from living here what's in season and what's not, which is insane because I'm 34 years old. My entire life, I never knew which was the season for apples. I don't even know which apples grow. I don't even know if any apples grow in Illinois. Like, I'm sure there's, a couple, but now they're all engineered. You see this apple and it's like perfectly pink and crispy. And if it's not super crispy and sweet, I don't want it. Whereas here, their apples are like, I hesitated to buy the apples here because to me they looked kind of ugly and most of them are bruised and but they're so good. They're delicious and they're not genetically modified. And it makes me really sad because I'm like, this could be a thing of the past. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously people buy them here, but even my first instinct wasn't to buy those apples. I wanted to buy like the pink lady or something. But now I'm in love with those apples. So that's just an example of like I'm just slowly learning what's in season. And sometimes, for example, strawberries here have been getting better and better and better as the months go by. And I'm like, oh, wow, we must be getting closer to like real strawberry season. And same with a lot of the fruits. I had no idea. And sometimes, like right now, I don't think we just can't get certain foods. And that's really cool because then it kind of forces you to be in the season and eating locally. You don't have a choice.
Yep.
It's not at the market. You can't buy it. So at our grocery stores at home, it's like, oh, any kind of apple, anytime,
Yeah.
any kind of grape, anytime, any kind of anything,
Yeah.
anytime. Like, we have no idea where this is coming from. So, yeah, I
I
actually
love
love
that you're
this.
getting that. I love that you're getting that. And I think we just need to do that more.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
why not have a couple chickens in your backyard
Yeah.
and get your eggs from them? It's like you can take it so far. But yeah, we need to start thinking that way. And I'm glad that you are. And I'm glad that you're experiencing all that because when I was with you, it was like, oh my God, this is the best strawberry I've had. And they're not even your best season yet. They're like, we don't have these anymore. They don't taste like that. Yeah.
It's so crazy. So I'm grateful and
Yeah.
I have hopes for America, that it's just gone so far with all the chemicals and all this stuff
Yeah.
that I feel like, the pendulum has swung way too far that direction. So hopefully it can start swinging back the other way. I have hope for that,
Let's hope
but
so. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and your
Welcome.
wisdom and your sweetness and your vulnerability and your emotions. And I just love you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.
This is fun. I love
Love
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.